Awakening the Nightmare is an expansion pack for Halo Wars 2, and when I say expansion pack, I mean actual expansion pack, in the old school sense of this being a bit more than just standard DLC for games. With the current celebration of Halo 3's 10-year anniversary and Halo's legacy in full effect with old school games playable on Xbox One now via backwards compatibility, and a throwback playlist for Halo 5, which is surprisingly fun by the way, it only makes sense that Halo Wars 2 throws its hat into the ring with an expansion focusing on a new flood outbreak spawned from the remains of High Charity, with a story focused on how the Banished handle the messy leftovers of the Halo 3 campaign, new units, Phoenix logs, Terminus firefight, a new enemy faction, and more. How does Awakening the Nightmare stand as a product? Here are some things we will cover in this video: the story and setting, the visuals and sound, the gameplay, and some nitpicks. And at the end of this video, I will be doing a giveaway of 4 Halo Wars 2 Complete Edition codes, which include the Season Pass and Awakening the Nightmare expansion pack. So stay tuned for that. Also, remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and hit the bell icon so that you can stay tuned for when I upload. And down below in the comments section, I will be posting a couple of upcoming video topics, and I want you guys to decide which video topics I should do first. So without further ado, enjoy. Awakening the Nightmare takes place a few months after the events of the UNSC campaign, which saw Atriox beaten back, and the ODST mini-campaign, which saw the defeat of one of his officers, Colony. Desperate for an edge against the Spirit of Fire, the Banished discover the ruined carcass of High Charity locked down in a quarantine zone by the Ark's defenses. Atriox orders 2 brute brothers to scavenge tech from around the quarantine zone, but to not break the quarantine zone. Voridus, the younger brother, decides to prove his worth to Atriox by shutting down the Ark's quarantine defenses and going into the zone himself to find more valuable tech inside for Atriox. And ultimately, the story shows the aftermath of what happens when you don't follow orders. While the UNSC campaign story mostly progressed during each Blur cutscene, with levels acting more as a setup for each cutscene, the storytelling in Awakening the Nightmare is a lot more fluid and organic. You get to know and appreciate the 2 brute brothers, Voridus and Pavium, as they desperately attempt to contain the outbreak before Atriox notices. In fact, with a more comedic perspective, this story is sort of like if Cat in the Hat met 28 weeks later. I found the whole idea of these 2 knuckleheads unleashing a horrifying zombie infection that they need to quickly contain before their dad comes home quite fun. And it is fun. I rarely felt like the game was stalling for time. Each objective given felt like it progressed this fun little story instead of halted it. And due to the self-contained nature of the story, it actually has a conclusion that left me feeling satisfied with this Voridus' worst day ever story, and concluded said story without feeling the need to set up sequels and spin-offs with cliffhanger or ambiguous endings like most AAA games these days. Similar to the UNSC campaign mirroring many elements of Halo CE's campaign, this Banished campaign also mirrors an element of CE's campaign, primarily the level 343 Guilty Spark, in the way that your characters find a locked door, open it, and accidentally unleash something ridiculous. The build-up to the flood reveal is quite tense because you know what's coming. The atmosphere is very uneasy, and the banter between the different units really give you the sense that you are meddling with something that you should just leave alone.
Voridus, there are many sentinels amassing here near the salvage site.
High Charity? The Covenant capital place? I heard it was haunted. Scary monsters everywhere. Whoa, man! Back off the gas!
Silence!
The UNSC campaign for Halo Wars 2 was a healthy blend of old and new art styles, which resulted in a familiar, yet new-feeling Halo game, which understood what Halo is supposed to look like while being able to create new, never-before-seen things that slide seamlessly into the Halo universe's aesthetic. Awakening the Nightmare furthers this as you get to see more of the Banished's ancient Roman, war-torn aesthetic, and further explore the way that they grow their strength by recycling, scavenging, and integrating foreign tech and materials into their ever-growing war machine. In a way, it's almost poetic that they end up going against the Flood, which live by assimilating not tech and salvage, but living organisms and wildlife. The way the landscape changes from vibrant and colorful to desaturated and sickly over the course of several hours is a good way to show how rapidly the Flood are able to just terraform the land and suck it dry of everything. The final mission is almost a mirror of the first mission in that the biome that you're fighting in is the same one as the first mission, only the final mission is being choked with infectious spores and clouds of sickness. Trees are desaturated and dying, and the sounds of distant infected organisms screaming fills the air. And the sight of hundreds of Flood parasites flowing through the map like a wave is the most stressful thing I've ever experienced in Halo Wars 2. Naturally, while the art does a good job of conveying the desperate situation, the music and sound is on point as well. The unnerving screams and shrieks of the infected instills a sense of dread that I haven't felt in Halo since their first appearance in Halo 3 on Earth. The music, like the first game's score, only adds to the experience. Music cues and stingers are always on point, and the music feels as if it's being composed on the spot to suit whatever is happening on screen. Stingers when a Flood army attacks are on point, and the brooding and atmospheric tracks whenever there is downtime do a good job of reminding you that you are only safe temporarily, and another wave of Flood are preparing for an assault.
Flood incoming from the east!
They're attacking us!
Destroy those who turn. They are no longer your allies. Into garrisons! Defend yourselves! Local units. Take the structure!
It's not quite as memorable on its own as some of the older Halo scores, but as an RTS score that is composed to assist the gameplay without overshadowing it, it's quite good. In the original StarCraft, my favorite mission is called Desperate Alliance. Essentially, it involves you needing to defend your colony till you can evacuate, as the planet is being rapidly taken over by the Zerg swarm. I cannot stress how much I love playing RTS games defensively. Planting defenses and holding off Zerg rushes is why I enjoy the RTS genre so much, and Awakening the Nightmare plays to my love of that. The UNSC campaign was very aggressive, while the Awakening the Nightmare campaign is incredibly defensive in nature and features units, buildings, and leaders tailored to horde defense. The third mission in particular is probably the most fun I've had in an RTS since the original StarCraft mission. It sees you gathering energy to power a drill as you fight off a never-ending Flood onslaught that grows in strength and power with each attack. Even after the incredibly fun defensive campaign, Terminus Firefight takes things a step forward and acts as a hybridization of balloon tower defense and RTS genres in this incredibly relaxing mode where you defend a tower against endless waves of enemies. The maps are designed with lanes that the enemies funnel down and have locations ripe for planting traps and defenses to hold off the horde. And, unlike Blitz Firefight, Terminus Firefight completely excludes all microtransactions and plays specifically to the strength and skill of the player. It's an addictive co-op mode built without an intrusive microtransaction system, and I've been finding it to be the perfect way to relax at the end of a long day of work. Well, I personally loved the down-to-earth, self-contained, conclusive story of the campaign. I can see why some players are a bit upset that it doesn't tie this flood outbreak into the future games and be a little bit bigger in scale, seeing as the flood have been sorely missed for years in the FPS Halo titles. I'm not going to pretend that my enjoyment of the conclusiveness of the story voids any players who feel a bit bummed by the flood being brought back after 10 years only to be stopped instantly. While this DLC is a celebration of the flood, it also gives off the impression that the Halo series is maybe a bit ashamed of its roots with the flood. The Halo games nowadays are pushing for safer and safer ratings with each release, and you get the idea that somebody upstairs is probably hoping that they can completely shed the series' ties to the flood ASAP, so that it can pursue younger and younger audiences, which in my opinion is kind of misguided. Obviously, it's important for franchises to try to hook kids while they're young, that way they grow up with this franchise and love it, in the same way that we grew up with the original trilogy. But I feel that going out of your way to soften the edge of your first-person shooter, try to make it safe and cushiony, it just feels so misguided. It's sort of like a slap in the face to the already existing audience, and the middle schoolers that you're trying to appeal to, they don't care. They don't want to be treated like kids. They're gonna buy the violent games like Doom or Call of Duty World War II anyways. It's like when RoboCop had that sequel that was PG-13. The fans didn't care for it, and neither did general audiences. Blood or any kind of gore is noticeably missing, and I'm not talking about organs and so much grossness. Even just a simple splash to indicate that something is wounded, it's not there. It's completely gone. Flood also seemed to just shrink away from view instead of collapsing into a decomposing pile of bones and infected flesh when you kill them. Cutscenes even go out of their way to not have any skin being broken or blood of any kind, unless it's from something that looks as non-human as possible. Despite the strict adherence to the T for Teen rating, I do appreciate the developers of this expansion pack for trying their hardest and pushing that rating, just trying as hard as they can to ride that family-friendly line and try to get as much violence as they possibly can into this DLC. Awakening the Nightmare was a fantastic experience. Its fun campaign, coupled with its focus on defensive play that really shines through in its firefight mode, makes this expansion pack quite satisfying, even if the story may not satisfy everyone, and the T for Teen rating hurts some of the body horror aspects of the flood. Awakening the Nightmare gets a B+ rating from me. I don't regret my time with it at all, and after this review I plan on playing some Terminus Firefight. And now for the giveaway. All you need to do to enter is leave a comment explaining your ideal flood story in Halo, original idea for a flood form in Halo, or just favorite flood memories from the Halo series. I'll be selecting 4 lucky people who will receive codes for Halo Wars 2 Complete Edition, which comes with Awakening the Nightmare. When leaving your comment, please leave your Xbox Gamertag so that you can receive your code from me if you win, and hopefully we can have more giveaways in the future.